Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the webinar, All You Need to Know About GreenUP. It's 9 o'clock and we'll slowly get started. Let's see if everyone has joined. People are still joining. Yeah, so welcome to this January morning, 2022. It's my pleasure to be able to present to you the second cohort of GreenUP Accelerator. We are currently in the middle of the first cohort that started May 2021. And they are currently in the gear up phase. So it's more or less the middle of the full acceleration program. And today we also have Johan from Concebio joining us a little bit later in this webinar, because he is one of the companies who are part of this program. But I think we should get started right away. First, you will have a presentation from me. I will go through most of what we need to tell you about the acceleration program. After that, we'll invite Johan to join, and we will take questions and have a little discussion, and I will ask Johan some questions about how what it's like to be part of the acceleration program. Right. So the GreenUP Accelerator is exclusively for climate tech companies who have an direct or indirect CO2 equivalent reduction as a part of your products or services. And looking back 20 months from now, you will have gained a substantial learnings on how to run a business. So we are not just a startup accelerator. We want to accelerate startups all the way through and help you scale up. We offer through a third-party investment company, we offer a 1 million kroner initial investment. And all of our startups have raised money during the program, and we have a very large network of investors that you will be introduced to. We really want to go past the startup phase and help you become structured and focused and have a strategic go-to-market experience, and hopefully go to international markets during the program. I will go into how we structure the program later, but there will be hours and hours of one-to-one consulting sessions with all of our experts, both internal and external, to help you refine your business in every way possible. We are located at the DTU campus in Lyngby. It is the Technical University of Denmark. Around us are some of Denmark's foremost experts within every kind of engineering discipline you can imagine. So it's a great environment to be in. And in the FutureBox house, we have roughly 25 companies living there as a co-working space. It's also critical for you guys to really know about the CO2 agenda, how to do impact assessments, what makes a sustainability business model different from any other regular business model, and also understand how to work with life cycle analysis, and how to account for and report on your CO2 emissions and understand the EU taxonomy of scope 1, 2, 3 emissions, and so on and so forth. So most accelerator programs, they run for a couple of months, 2, 3, up to 5 months, and are quite generic, focusing mainly on getting a startup off the ground. But we have a bigger ambition. We really want to focus not only on the startup phase, but bring you along for a longer ride with many more experts and hours put into it to help you scale properly internationally. So if we look a little bit at the scope, we expect a bit more than 100 applicants this year too. From those 100 applicants, 30 will be selected for a boot camp. The boot camp is a 7-day assessment week where you will spend 2 to 3 days each of the companies will spend it meeting with me and investors and pitch experts, team experts, and also get a workshop in climate impact forecasting. After that, after the bootcamp is done, you will pitch to a jury, and 15 of the 30 companies will be selected to join the program. I will also show you a timeline and a funnel later today. You have to be a climate tech startup. Tech can be both hardware and software. We have both in the current program also, but there has to be validated and realistic direct or indirect CO2 equivalent reduction impact of your company's activities. A little bit on the entry criteria. We do not accept companies where the founders are students at the date of the program start. The program starts on the 2nd of May of this year. So if you are still students at that time, unfortunately, you cannot join GreenUP. You have to be minimum 2 full-time employees, and a startup, meaning you should not be a 10-year-old company or a daughter company of a corporate company. Those cannot be accepted. You should be past the idea stage, minimum proof of tech. So you have a prototype, it's working, and you should have roughly 12 to 18 months to market. It may be that your current plans show that it will take 2 or 3 years, and that is also okay. You should definitely apply. There's 2 parts to that. Number 1, we want to accelerate your timeline so you can get to market quicker. But it may also be that you're working with very deep tech. It could be hydrogen production, robots, or so on and so forth. And in those cases, your time to market will be longer, and that is there is a possibility definitely for you to join, even though you have longer time to market. Should be a novel technology or the business model, and preferably it should be able to patent. And it's super important that you own the IP. We will ask you those questions when you go through the assessment. Who owns the IP? Because we have experienced many times over the years. In FutureBox, we also have Danish Tech Challenge that we have run for 8 years now. And unfortunately, quite a few companies over the years did not manage to get their IP out from a university or from other IP owners, so they couldn't really scale their company because no investors wanted to invest in a company that didn't own their own IP. There should definitely be a big climate change breakthrough potential in your idea. So where are we focusing? We're focusing on 4 main areas. Companies that work within industry or buildings. It could be building materials, it could be energy efficiency, production, so on and so forth. Transportation, that would be electric vehicles or alternative fuels or charging or anything within the transportation sector. Food and agriculture is also a big focus area. We see a lot of interesting innovation coming out of that area in Denmark right now. And of course, energy, where we also have a few energy-related startups in the current GreenUP cohort. You will see here that we have an aim of 15 that start and 12 that get to the gear up phase, and 8 will scale. That is our aim. But we do offer you a convertible note loan when you start the program, and it is it's split into 2 phases. So if you choose to take the convertible loan, which is optional, it is not required for you to be a part of the program to take the note. You will get the first half, 500,000 kroner at the start of the program, early May. And then the second half, the last 500,000 will be paid out in December at the start of the gear up phase, if you make it to the gear up phase. When we get to the bootcamp, we will jump much more detailed into the terms of the convertible note, but I can give you a quick bullet point overview. And I also have a question from Eric Wester here. Is program participation non-dilutive if I don't want to take any notes or investments? So the way I understand your question is, do you have to give up any equity to GreenUP for participation or anyone else? And if that is your question, the answer is no. GreenUP Accelerator is completely free for the 15 companies who participate. If you take the note, that is a separate investment company that the DTU Science Park and FutureBox has no equity in. And the terms are a 48-month period. It's a 5% interest rate. There is no cap and a 25% discount. So it should be one of the best term sheets out there in Denmark right now. There is a chat. All right, thanks Eric for asking the questions. Anyone, just ask me questions as we go along. So as I said, it's a free program. We are funded by Industriens Fund and DTU Science Park, and participation is completely free. We don't take equity, and we are not allowed from FutureBox's side to invest in you, but any investor that you wish to work with from our vast network across Europe is a possibility for you guys. I think maybe Johan can also mention their investment journey when we get to that. Michelle, good question. What happens if you take the 1 million and fail? Is it then personal liability? No. Your company takes the loan and your company is liable for the loan. So no, there's no personal liability. And as I mentioned before, well, I didn't mention that, but the reason why we want to offer this is 2 or 3-fold. Number one, we want to give you some extra runway to really focus on the program, to focus on your company, to focus on accelerating your team, making sure that you really have the peace of mind to work fully and focused on creating a better company and not spending 30 or 40% of your time chasing funding. That's number one. Number two, when you do receive the funding or you're part of the program, you are introduced to the investor group of 10 investors that have put up the money for this convertible note. And there you have the opportunity to meet with very experienced, high net worth people that all have an interest in seeing you succeed. So you can have investor meetings where you don't have to only hype your company, but also be very honest about where your challenges are and what you need in your company to succeed. And they are very open to opening their networks and giving you feedback and helping you get the right pieces and people in place for you to succeed. So why did we choose to make a 20-month program? Well, we have a PhD student in FutureBox that has studied startups for quite a few years now. And there is the crucial transition period or valley of death, which is often overlooked, but is quite central. There is so much talk about going from startup to scale up. And as I said before, most of the accelerator programs, they really focus on the startup phase. But what happens after an acceleration program? Quite a few companies, they succeed, but a lot of companies, they don't succeed. So that's why we focused a lot on what we call the gear up phase, the often overlooked transition phase, where you're done pivoting, you're done reassessing your business model, trying to figure out who your beachhead customer is, and how's the pricing going to be, and who will be your suppliers, and all of that stuff. And it's time to really get some processes and structures in place so we can help you move to 10 plus employees and become a proper scale up. So these are the three phases, and as you can see from the main statements, in the startup phase, pivoting is key. That's where we go through all of the tools and the canvases that some of you may have seen before. But the difference between the way we do it and many other programs is that we have one consultant per discipline that really helps you dive into the nitty-gritty of it and help you really learn about it so you can focus that into your company. The gear up phase is really about structure, setting a team, getting your people and culture right, building a sales organization, and creating a go-to-market strategy. And the scale-up phase is where we help you enter an international market by opening up our international network to get you placed in the market to expand from there. The 20 months look pretty much like this. There will be a boot camp end of March, early April. And there you will go through assessment meetings with 4 different stations, and also have a workshop with climate impact forecasting, where we make a business as usual baseline for your company and services. The startup phase is from the 2nd of May for 4 months. And when that phase is done, you have 2 months of no program content. And you will be offered at 1 or more desks in FutureBox for free during the full program. So during the startup phase, lots of activities, lots of program content, lots of focus on your specific needs. Then you have a work phase where you implement everything that you learn. And then there's a gear up phase, again, 4 months, a little bit less intense, a little bit less content, and we don't have weekly activities because at that time your company will be growing, hopefully really fast. You will be hiring new people, and you don't have that much time to follow a program, but you still have between 8 and 10 consultants and experts that can help you on the different parts of the program. After that, there's a work phase, and then the scale-up phase is focusing on getting you into 1 or 2 international markets and traveling out to establish your company there. So there will be, it is not a competition, but some of you will drop out of the program for one reason or the other. The way we do it is that in the startup phase, we have 12 disciplines, and you all start as red in each of the discipline. And through one-to-one meetings with the different discipline owners, we help you get to a certain level where we have some quite clear deliverables on what you have to be able to do for us to say that, well, you at least gear up ready. So we flip you from red to yellow to green every Friday. And it is a clear, you have, well, I'm looking for the English word. So you have to be green in every of the 12 disciplines by the end of the startup phase in order to make it to the gear up phase. That is why 15 companies started this year, and we are currently 10 companies that started the gear up phase. If it turns out that you are not ready for the gear up phase, we have our programs running in parallel, but in parallel and for scoots, which means, if I could find the word, which means that if you don't make it into the gear up phase during this program, you can wait for 12 months. And if it fits your timing, you can then apply to be part of the next cohort's gear up phase that is starting. I have a question. What? Anonymous attendee says, what if your business is established with pre-seed investment and just 2 employees, but would like to use this program to pivot part of the business into a totally new industry? Well, that is a very exciting challenge. And I think you should definitely hand in your application. It will only take you, I think, maybe 30 minutes to fill out the application and upload your pitch deck. And it would be it would be key to point out the journey that you're currently taking, that you've started here with investment. You had to make a significant pivot. So you're moving into a totally new industry, which means you have investment, you're 2 people, you have learned something, and you figured out that you need to go in a different direction. So I think that would be an interesting challenge for both GreenUP and you. So you are very welcome to apply. And if you apply by the end of this month, before the early bird deadline, I'll show you in a second, we will have a 30-minute meeting with you to give you some feedback, where you have the opportunity to take that feedback and make a better application and resubmit it during February, because there will be a jury of people who are not me or Siya that will look at your application and pitch deck to assess if you're between the 30 that will get into the bootcamp. So it makes good sense to apply now and get some feedback and reapply. Good. So I see that I am spending a lot of time talking, and I should get moving a little quicker. So how do we run the program? As I said before, we have 12 different disciplines that are run by experts within the field. We have an intensive onboarding week for the first week, where you get an intro to all the workshops, to the 12 disciplines, and you have a half an hour intro one-to-one meeting with each discipline owner, where you really quickly assess how far along are you in this discipline, and how much should you focus on that from week one, or should you prioritize it a little bit less. We're really trying to figure out how to customize your journey specifically for you. Most of the program is one-to-one consulting that you book with each of the discipline owners. And we also have a weekly workshop that are either one of the disciplines who needs a deeper dive to properly learn it, or it is something additional to the 12 disciplines that is an add-on value for you, for your customers, for your company. So GreenUP is really customized to your needs. So we don't have 1 week of business models and then 1 week of sales training and then 1 week of that you have to attend in that order. It's really about customizing it to your needs and you booking the meetings with the consultants. We also have access to workshops where there's all sorts of tools and laser cutters and so on and so forth, food labs and those things. You get free office space during the entire program in FutureBox in Lyngby, and it's great. It's a great environment to be in. In parallel to the program content, you also have the opportunity of getting 3 mentors from our Deep Tech Mentoring Program, which is a collaboration that we started with MIT about 7 years ago. There is also a lot of value to gain from having 3 mentors meeting at the same time, and then going through a few hours for them to see how they can help you, guide you and coach you in your company. You should have at least 3 meetings during the first 4 months, but you can also choose to have more if needed. These are a few of the partners that help us. So for example, if we look at the disciplines in the startup phase, there is one discipline called Legal and Accounting. There, EY and BAC Law will jump straight down into checking that you have everything that you need in order to be at least get the fundamentals right for your company. Shareholders agreement, how does your cap table look? Do you have a proper bookkeeping in place? Do you know how to do budgets? What does your liquidity budget look like? How can we help you make it better? So we can check off and say, well, from a legal and an accounting standpoint, you're all good. You are solid companies. We have the problem, which is your fundamental value proposition. Who's your beachhead customers? What's the actual problem you're solving and for who? Marketing customers and so on and so forth. Each of these disciplines are run by separate experts who have this as their main focus area for you. When you're done on the essentials and the fundamentals and getting to a product market fit and startup phase, you will go on to the GreenUP phase. Here you see that the disciplines are slightly different, not corporate, but going that direction. You need to have strategy, you need to have structure, you need to have processes in place. And here we have some supporting functions, which is IP lawyers, AVA, general legal assistance from BAC Law. There's a full program of reading deck, pitch deck, and pitch training support. So you should be during the startup phase, you should have all of that done. So when you get to the GreenUP phase, you have already secured funding, you have a super pitch deck and everything. So other than that, we also do project management workshops and pitch training and so on and so forth. In the scale-up phase, we really focus on growth and internationalization. Good. So the startup phase is really about your product market fit, and the gear-up phase is really about getting ready to scale internationally. And during the program, you should have growth in either full-time employees or turnover and or funding. So if you want to join the Accelerator, there's early bird application deadline now on the 31st of January. And the final application deadline is on the 28th of February. This is what the selection process looks like. So we are currently in some kind of dialogue or screening process of more than 250 companies. We expect to see 100 plus applications again this year. We had 110 last year. There will be an internal selection from the 100 plus down to 50. And then in March, the investor group and a few other experts will cut the 50 down to 30. And you will be invited to participate in the bootcamp. At the end of the bootcamp is a 5-minute pitch in front of a jury of investors and FutureBox representatives and external partners. And from those pitching sessions, we will choose the 15 who can join the program. Between the pitching days and the program start, we will do 2 workshop days for you to meet our attorney. For your legal assistance attorney for the program that will also go through the convertible note terms point by point for you to become completely familiar with the content and make a decision if it's something for you or not. So here are the application and selection process dates. Again, it doesn't take a long time to send in your first application, and try and get it here before the 31st of January, because then you will get a 30-minute feedback session with me and or Sia, where you can also ask questions, but it's mostly focused on us understanding better your value proposition and your business potential, and giving you feedback so you can resubmit your application. Final application deadline, February 28th. And then, so this is an important note. As soon as we have chosen the 50 who are in the running to join the bootcamp, all those 50 will get a notification to pre-book your dates for both the bootcamp, the jury pitch, and program start, because things will go really fast, and there will only be from a week between you get the final notification of joining the program to going through the convertible note due diligence process to starting the program. So if you're between the 50, you will be notified to pre-book your dates. Good. So that was my walkthrough of the GreenUP Acceleration Program. And now, if there's any questions from you guys, please raise your hand, chat, or write in the Q&A. And while I think we should just bring Johan onto the screen, and we can take questions along the way like we did before also. Hello, Johan. Welcome. Welcome to the webinar.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
So Johan, you are the co-founder of Co2. Could you start out by giving us a little presentation of what Co2 is and who you are?
Yeah, sure. Well, Co2 is a startup company founded in Aarhus, actually, by me and two other guys. And what Co2 does is that we develop a cloud and IoT platform targeted for the bio-based industries that help optimize productivity and decrease use of resources. So, for example, wastewater plants or biogas plants, we help them monitor their emissions and use them in a smarter way and convert it to actionable insights.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
So tell me, Johan, how many people are you in the company now, and who started the company?
Well, we are 5 people in the company right now, but the company was started by me and my 2 co-founders, Søren and Emil, when we did our engineering studies in Aarhus at Aarhus University. And then since then we have hired 2 people, and I hope to hire at least 3 more this year.
All right, cool. So you're really grown now.
Yeah, I think so. It's a fun journey.
Great. So why did you apply to GreenUP?
Yeah. Well, as I mentioned, we started the company in the final years of our engineering studies. So when we had a year left, we started wondering how we could move this project from being a side hustle to a full-blown company with international ambitions, because that was what we dreamed of from the beginning. And I don't remember how, but one of my co-founders found the GreenUP website, and we read it and thought it would be highly relevant, especially due to these ideas of access to funding and the Mentorship Program and access to international camps when and if you go to the scale-up phase.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we applied, thought that was what we needed.
Yeah. So GreenUP is not a virtual program. You have to be here for the program phases. Did that pose any challenges for you as an Aarhus-based company?
Well, it was definitely something we had some concerns about when we applied. But yeah, because we have our office and we have our daily lives in Aarhus, and we intended to keep doing so. So yeah, we had some concerns about the time we had to spend on transportation, which was essentially lost hours. But being part of the program now, it hasn't been a real issue at all. Of course, there are things you have to attend in person with the program, but I think you guys have been keeping a very nice balance between what can be done online and what you have to attend in a way that really makes sense. And I would say, furthermore, all these visits, when you live in Aarhus, these visits to Zealand with an office place you can just drop in and use, actually brings up a lot of opportunities to meet with local businesses and really use it to an advantage.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of you during the startup phase, especially where there's a lot of content in-house every week.
Yeah.
I also have a feeling that you made the best of the time in Copenhagen, meeting with all sorts of interesting people, investors, and so on and so forth. Is there any? Can you remember some of the community-related opportunities that presented itself while you were in Lyngby?
Yeah, sure. Well, there's a lot of professional network that you gain access to through the Accelerator program. And there's a lot of network effects that really help when you're there physically. So for example, one of our mentors in the Mentorship Program actually ended up being one of our investors now. Of course, that didn't require any physical attendance, but in the process of finding these investors, we also met with the local venture capital firms that were placed in Lyngby and other potential investors. So there's a lot of value to be gained by meeting people there locally who know someone and want you to meet someone. So yeah, it's been really great.
Yeah, and seen from my perspective, your co-founder Søren was also driving a lot of the funding talks.
Yeah.
And you were not the first ones to get funding, but you were definitely already talking with investors by the time you came over to the first part of the program.
Yeah, that's true.
Do you have any insights to? So you ended up by being funded by one of your mentors, but getting to that insight, understanding why you chose him instead of pre-seed ventures that you talked to, instead of some of the investors in our investor group, is there any insights there on how to get to that decision?
Yeah, it was a difficult journey. I think we realized early that we needed some funding to secure our growth. So like you said, Søren, who is the CEO of Concebio, I'm the CTO. Mm-hmm. He had done a lot of work reaching out to, for example, pre-seed ventures and local business angel in Aarhus and business angel in the Copenhagen area. And we spent a lot of time talking to all these people. But when you take in an investment, it's also a lot about gut feeling. I think we were in a good place because we were not in dire need of an investment here. Now we could easily wait a year more. So we talked a lot about that. It had to feel right. It had to be a person that could feel the adventure and wanted the journey itself. And we didn't know if we felt that with some of the persons we spoke to, but then, one of the mentors, that's in a mentorship program, you show your real, your most insecure sides. There you don't have your game face on. There you talk about what you think is difficult. And then the mentor here, and like he was just a really good guy. And then suddenly he mentioned, well, you've been talking a lot about these investments. I'm actually really interested in. So we knew he bought in on us as whole persons and on the journey itself. I think that was a big difference. Yeah. And also his experience professionally was highly relevant. Yeah.
Sure. So you mentioned that you didn't that you were not in dire need of investment right away, so you had proper time. Yeah, that's also why you chose to wait and not take the convertible note. But do you think our logic of offering the 500,000 upfront makes sense in order to get some calm into your decision making? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I think it makes a lot of difference, especially when we went out and talked to these investors, but we knew we had the opportunity to take the convertible note. Mm-hmm. And so there was always this fallback, or it can also be a first choice, but you know that it's an option. So when you set it in front of an investor and you don't feel it, you can just say, no, we're not interested. And then you become really interesting as something to invest in, because the companies that are not, don't need it right now, that's the companies that look like someone who's going to succeed. So we actually experienced at the level of someone who just cold called us asking whether we were interested in investment. That was really racing in that time. And I think this convertible note and that unconscious level of knowing that it's going to be fine, that made a big difference.
Yeah. So I have a question from Mads that I will circle back to in a second, just for Mads to know that I have your question and answer ready. So you mentioned cold calling from investors. Did it make any difference? Did they start calling you because you had joined GreenUP, or what happened?
I think that, I don't know the exact reason, but I think there's a lot of exposure being part of an accelerator like GreenUP. There's I think from an investor's standpoint, that they see a lot of different startups, and a lot of them want something great, but they haven't shown much yet. But then they have GreenUP is a way of validating. So that's a third party validating us as a company because we were accepted in the program.
Yeah.
And you guys are good at making marketing on social media and trying to put us companies out there. And I think the sum of that makes a big difference for our credibility.
Yeah, I have to be honest and say that I was really surprised at how fast the capital started moving in as soon as we made it official who the 15 participants were. I hadn't really expected that, to be quite honest. I know that DTC, Danish Tech Challenge, has a very good reputation, and we were building on top of that reputation when we started last year, and we hadn't done GreenUP Accelerator before, and we had never done a 20-month program before. So that was a surprising thing. Do you think it works well for you that we are such a long program? How have you experienced the switch from startup to the gear up phase?
Yeah, I think it works. We've tried a lot of different kind of programs or business development workshops and stuff like that. But the thing that GreenUP is for such a long period gives a level of continuity that what you provide us moves along with what we need. And that's really valuable. And I don't think you can get that for a very short program because a lot happens in a year.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially at the point where we're in right now.
Yeah, and it's a sales point from our side that we're a fully customized program. Do you think that we've succeeded in customizing the program to your needs?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I think like you said in your presentation that in the startup phase there's a lot more content, and that requires more attendance. And then when you move to the gear up phase where we're in now, right now, you make it much more tailor-made as we go along. And it really makes sense that you have to bring everyone up to speed to the same thing, and then you try to help them where they are.
Yeah.
So that's a way for keep making it valuable, because we invest time in this, but we gain much more.
Yeah. Yeah. So Mads has a question about great example. If we have examples of great pitch decks, and should the pitch deck include certain content? I would like to ask you, Johan, how you saw your pitch decks evolve from when you applied and during the startup phase. What do you think is a great pitch deck?
Yeah, it's a good question, because our pitch deck definitely looks different now than it did 10 months ago. And that's also part of the GreenUP process, that you make, for example, a pitch deck. Then you try sending it to some investors, see what they think. We send it to you guys, hear what you think, and then correct it as we go.
Yeah.
For the question about what it should contain, it should be something that people can buy into. So explaining the whole idea, explaining the vision and the adventure and why it matters. And also, if you have some results or some people to back it up and some numbers to back it up.
Yeah.
And then those numbers will, of course, for an early startup be somewhat made up. But you have to believe that this will come true to a certain degree, at least.
Yeah.
So I think a good presentation, a very, very nice short presentation, what it is exactly that you do. And then some budgets, both on like a 1-2 year horizon and also on a 5-year horizon, and look into what the market is, how big it is, what's the competition out there?
Hmm.
Because that's a 360 around what you are, what you do, and what environment you try to navigate in.
Yeah. Yeah, and what we learned from the first pilot version of the GreenUP that you're part of into the next is that we will focus much more on the deck, the pitch deck, the reading deck, the investor deck. And the reason why I'm sharing my screen now is because I wanted to show you guys this slide. Can you see the slide on the screen here? So, Mads, a great pitch deck has an emotional hook very early. The people who see the deck should feel some kind of attraction or annoyance or happiness or interest in really understanding what is it that your company does. And then it's super important to have a clear problem statement. What is the actual problem you're solving? For who? How are you solving it? And what specifically does the product look like? And then you go down the steps of things that you need to have. So what we try to do is the 12 disciplines, each of them are designed to create a slide that you can put into your deck. So during the startup phase now, during 4 months, we will focus on helping you make sure that all of the deliverables that you need to do in each of the disciplines can be converted straight into a slide in your investor pitch deck. So from that, you should have a large deck, somewhere around maybe 30, maybe max 40 slides, with all of the information that you need to explain your company. And then that will be split into 2 versions. The long one is the reading deck, and then you will take out the key slides to make your presentation deck. During the startup phase, we will also have, we will give you full pitch deck support. So we will also have Lisbeth, one of the most amazing presentation performance trainers that I've met, to come in and give you several performance coaching workshops where she really helps you do the pitch in front of people. And it will be a full part of the startup program to really go through making a world-class, not only a world-class deck content-wise, but also a world-class pitch performance from you guys. I know we missed that in the startup phase that you attended, Johan, but we did manage to help you guys out, and I've seen you pitch your company, and you do an amazing job.
Thanks.
That's really great. We have a few minutes left, and I am not texting anyone here. I'm just looking at the notes that I've written down on some questions. Is there anything that I forgot to ask you about that you want to mention?
I don't know. I think maybe worth putting some pinpoint, especially is the mentorship program. I think with that we have gained a lot from that, both the investment, of course, but also especially in the beginning, before the investment, we didn't have a board. So the mentorship program is kind of, it functions somewhat like a board, but with parties who don't have any commercial interest. So they're just there to help, and because they think what you do is exciting. Yeah. And that was really, really great, especially in the startup phase, to help shape our minds around the problems we had. For example, how did we make the first 2 hires? How do you find out what kind of role and what kind of person you need. I think they did an amazing job boiling that down to something we could take action on.
Yeah, and I also remember how your organization chart was alive. It kept changing, and it was refined, and during the program you really got closer and closer to really understanding, okay, this is what we need. And also seeing how the three founders, you three founders that are on paper have the same education and look quite similar, but how you really became more specifically responsible for each part of the company that was, as far as I've understood from the outside, really fits your personalities and your competencies, that now you're settled in those responsibilities. Is that correctly understood from my side?
Yeah, I think so. We spend a lot of time, especially on that. And it makes us more effective in our work, because we're better at doing these more specific areas than trying all three to include everything. Yeah. And also it also makes us more happy, because we are more driven by, I love writing software and creating new stuff. And I don't think budgeting is really that nice, but it's important. But Søren loves budgeting and financials and talking to the customers and selling. So yeah, I think it's a maturement process that GreenUP helps with, and the mentorship program has helped us with. Yeah, so that's been really good.
It's really gratifying for me to follow you guys and getting to know you in such a deep way. Obviously, I could mention your org chart, how that developed, but obviously there's a full confidentiality within the program and with the mentors, so nothing can be shared outside of the GreenUP context. One last mention before we sign off for today is the mentor program that you mentioned. The mentor program, we have 125 experienced business people as mentors. And what we do is before you start the program, you have a template where you fill out the challenges that you have, the needs that you see, and so on, a number of questions. And then we have a mentor responsible here in FutureBox that that handpicks who she thinks could be right. Then all of the mentors are invited to info meeting where I present the 15 companies and the main asks that you have. And then the mentors, they bid in and say, well, I would like to mentor Conceive UR. I would like to mentor Reflow or who they are. So some of you get 10, 15 mentors raising their hand. And then there's an intense process from that day to handpick the 3 right ones for you. And then one of them are your lead mentor that you have the main contact with, that also takes care of keeping the others informed and so on. So it's a really valuable addition to the program, I think, as you also said. Okay, so everyone, thanks for participating. I'm really happy that you took your time to log in today. Johan, thanks for joining. It was a pleasure as always.
I think so too.
And yeah, anyone online, please send in your applications before the early bird deadline. Then we have a chance to book a 30-minute meeting online to discuss further. And if it turns out that you think GreenUP is completely right for you, and we think that you're a high potential startup and you should be a part of the program, we will give you some feedback on how to refine your application. And yeah, hope to see some of you in the bootcamp. And Johan, I'll see you in the Gear Up phase later this week.
Yeah, sure. See you.
All right. Bye-bye. Thank you, everyone. I have a few questions here. I have some, so before I jump off, is there any questions? Can we have the slides? Thanks for the session. So we will make a PDF version of today's slides and share with the people on this call. And we should have them out to you by end of day tomorrow. That was a question, and no other questions as far as I see. Mette, thank you for the positive feedback. Jakob, thank you. Anonymous attendee, thank you too. And everyone have a great day.